With beautiful fossils, it's easy to focus on the idea of perfection. A fossil shell or bone that looks exactly like it did when the animal was alive thousands or even millions of years ago. I'm going to focus heavily on this beautiful ammonite because it's a good example of what many might consider to be perfect. We have an intact ammonite right from its mouth border all the way to the middle of the shell. It actually may have lost some of its shell, this brown material, but this actually helps us to understand the internal structure of the ammonite and the environment in which the fossil was buried, due to the presence of this iron pyrite or fool's gold. But really, that's all this shell says. A perfect fossil can actually be scientifically boring. The imperfections are more likely to inform us about the life and death of the animal, and even what happened to the remains as they got buried. In fact, this perfect ammonite is imperfect. If we flip it over, we can see some of the holes in its shells, just here. These are likely some form of predation marks, possibly from crustaceans. By having these imperfections, these holes, it gives us insight into not just what the ammonite is as an animal, but other species that may live in the environment and how they interact with each other. Ammonites lived in vast numbers in the Mesozoic seas, so it's perhaps unsurprising that things were eating them and or exploiting their shells after the ammonites died. The holes on this ammonite are just one example. Next to it is an ammonite section from the Cretaceous of North America, which has these lovely ammonite colors. In the middle is a single hole. Similar holes have caused a lot of debate in the past. Are they bite marks, or something trying to dig or bore into the shell? The first suggestion was that a large marine reptile, a mosasaur in the case of these Cretaceous ammonites, bit the shell whilst trying to eat the ammonite. This results in a row of circular holes across the ammonite. But would these giant teeth punching through the shell not cause a lot of cracks and breaks rather than these clean holes? Later work has proposed an alternative: limpets. Limpets, when they anchor to the ground, rotate back and forth, and their shells actually dig into the rock, leaving little circles. It was suggested that this slow, gradual boring by the limpet would actually create the same circles on ammonites without breaking the shells. Could limpets or other similar mollusks be creating the hole? There are a few limpets in the formations where these ammonites are found, and the most recent work returns to the holes being bite marks. But what about in Yorkshire? We're looking at the Jurassic. There's no mosasaurs here. So the species responsible for large bite marks are almost certainly going to be pliosaurs and plesiosaurs, although undoubtedly sharks will be involved too. The other thing that a lot of people forget is that ammonites likely preyed on each other. There's evidence from species down in Dorset and published in the Yorkshire Geological Society journal that ammonites are chewing on each other and leaving very distinct V-shaped marks missing out of a certain section of the shell. This is far from a complete overview of everything that's ever eaten an ammonite, but I hope it gives you an insight into why some of these imperfect fossils are actually far more interesting. These bite marks give us insight into the past in a way that a perfect fossil never would.